Welcome to the Echo and Athena podcast, where authenticity drives real change. I'm your host, Brian John, and together we'll explore stories and strategies to help you embrace your true self and make a lasting impact. Ready to get started? Let's go. Welcome to the Echo and Athena podcast. I am your host, Brian John, and we are visited today by our very special guest, Brian Baker. I've known Brian for a little over a year and a half now, and Brian has an incredible story to tell, a life journey that is filled with twists and turns and adversity, as well as joy and triumph. And so, without any further ado, I'd like to introduce to our listening audience, Brian Baker. Brian, it's great to have you with us, bud.
Hey, Brian, I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate that you spell your name with an I instead of a Y as well. So I'm glad you can tell we're from the 70s generation.
That's right. Well, there really is only one way to spell it.
True. trying to get that across to the Brian's with the Y and the Ryans. Yeah, it's a little bit challenging convincing them otherwise.
Yeah, we'll work with them. We'll get them there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
One of the things that is impressive about Brian is his creative mind, his understanding of life, his life journey, but also the fact that Brian is a 5-time cancer survivor. And in his journey, it is so rich, it is so difficult, but it also leads to these moments of triumph that he uses as opportunities to share with others and to help destigmatize the cancer journey, as well as help people kind of see life from a greater perspective through his advice, through his wisdom, and through his friendship. So we're going to jump right into it, Brian. You and I are not small talk guys. We love to get into it. So, the 5-time cancer survivor, that's a big thing. I don't know anyone who's had that situation.
Well, I don't mean to correct you, but I'm only a 4-time cancer survivor, so don't project me for another one. I don't want to do no more.
Okay. No, I am sorry. I am sorry.
No. It's all good. I don't think it makes much of a difference between 4 and 5. You get the same experience through it all. But yeah, I was in 2015. I was diagnosed with follicular non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, grade 3, and it's a blood cancer for those who are familiar with the terminology. And I've had multiple reoccurrences, and oftentimes with blood cancers, those reoccurrences mutate. So then I became what's called double hit non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So then I got follicular and diffuse large B cell, which makes it a little bit more complicated to treat. But as of now, they say there's no cure, but the future prognosis is that they're possibly on the path to getting one with CAR T-cell immunotherapy, something in which I've had twice, which saved me twice, put me in almost 6 years. So I'm still in remission. The one put my diffuse large B cell into remission, and then I just had a reoccurrence last year of the follicular portion. So I just got CAR T for that, and hopefully that'll maintain and keep me going for some time.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And that's, our intentions, our prayers, and our hopes are all right there with you, my friend.
So, yeah, I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I got to say that moment, the first time, that moment when you heard those words that you had a cancer diagnosis, can you talk to us about that? Tell us about any shifts that you felt in your life, or even perspective, just hearing that.
Well, outside of just being shocked that I had cancer, I think we had this mindset that we're invincible until something happens and you realize how vulnerable we all really are. But for me, one of the things that just became really apparent once I got beyond the shock is how much I was focused on time and what I did with that time. People, when you get diagnosed with cancer, like you're looking through life through like a telephoto lens, like you can see way out into the future. But once you get that diagnosis, all of a sudden that telephoto lens was replaced with the macro lens, and you're only looking at things, within reach. It's a day or two or a week or a month. It's never 3, 4, 5, 10 years down the road. So there was it gave me a real sense of time and how valuable that is and how quickly it can be taken away. And honestly, it helped me kind of reevaluate how I was spending my time and
Mm.
how to better use my time moving forward.
Yeah. So then you have that first one, you beat it, and then you have three more diagnoses that come along through the years. After facing this multiple times and being a survivor and a thriver out of this, how has your definition of this concept we call life, how has it changed?
uh, so many ways. I mean, I think I I refer for people like us who are a little bit older, like it's like going from analog TV. You're living your life in analog TV vision, into all of a sudden you're into high definition 4K. Everything has a different sense to it. Something as simple as walking outside and watching the trees blowing in the wind, or I know it always pops up in my mind when I'm cutting the grass. Like, I hate cutting the grass, but then I remind myself I probably shouldn't even be here. So appreciate cutting the grass. Like, you just have this whole uh, new perspective on everything you do going forward. Because honestly, these are bonus days. I probably should have died in 2018, almost did. So everything that I have been dealing with is I got a whole new lens to everything now, and I think it's for the better, because I don't take for granted that I'll always be able to cut the grass. So I can slow down and enjoy the moments much more intensely than I previously did, if that makes sense.
Absolutely does. And when you have a shift like that, I'm sure a lot of the focuses or values that you have
Mm-hmm.
get challenged, and some of those either change or they fall by the wayside. And just going through this process, how did your beliefs or values that you had before going through this, how have they changed?
Yeah, it's been an intense journey. Because prior to me being sick, I begrudgingly admit I was very much more conservative in my ideology. I very much had that mindset that that I can make it to be 70 and not have any issues, and I just work hard and this and that. And then once I got my diagnosis, the reality of what having a health issue is like,
Mm.
um, and watching, worrying about bankruptcy. So it's come back 4 times. Every time it comes back, the fear of bankruptcy sets in, like, because you're going to have to come up with all this money, your deductible, your max out of pocket. These treatments I was getting, I think the CAR-T was almost $500,000. Um, so my max out of pocket was 20,000. So I know right off the start of that year, I'm going to have to come up with that money one way or the other. Thankfully, my wife, she's a grinder, and she's really helped me get through that. But it brought a new awareness to me. Especially, I'll give you a story. When I was staying at the Kroger pharmacy line, it was in January, post treatment for one of my CAR Ts, I believe, or it's my stem cell transplant. And I remember staying in line to get my medicine, and 3 people in front of me were in line, and I literally watched all 3 of them walk away without picking up their script. And then it dawned on me at that moment, none of these people fit their deductible, so they got to pay, the full amount for their medicine. And it saddened me, because then when I got up there, I'm like, well, I haven't hit my deductible quite yet either. Wonder what mine's going to be. And it was the same scenario, and it was like $300 for some medicine just to keep me alive, help me survive through this. And I told the lady, I was like, I can't afford it as a cancer patient. So, I'm unemployed. I'm getting treatment it's just too much. So I had to call the doctor, get a different script from what they wanted me to have, which was much cheaper. I don't know if it was any more or less effective, but it was an option B, or sometimes you got to go to option C because of those issues. And then all of a sudden, my conservative mindset started switching. Um, Being there's not really much of a safety net out there for people, and suddenly it clicked with me like, oh boy, it's not a problem until it hits you, right? And then I was, oh well, I guess other people have had this problem all along, and that realization come on, and I started kind of clicking more to a liberal thinking, more of a community based thinking with more
Mm,
empathy, compassion, understanding of how, issues that other people deal with, whether it's healthcare, or whether it's being black or brown in America, or if it's poverty, or whatever the issue is. Like, wow, boy, people deal with some crap, and I really need to open my mind to, it's just not all easy breezy as my life was before cancer. That times can be tough, and you have to sometimes meet people where they're at and understand where they're at.
yeah. And I think it's interesting how, this isn't a political podcast, but with my background in mental health studies and my background in leadership, one of the things that was just so shocking was the conservative attack on empathy that
Mm-hmm.
took place earlier this year, and how you talked about how that was, I would say, one of the keys or part of the combination to opening yourself up to seeing things on that macro level that was aligned with your experience and seeing
Mm-hmm.
whatever everyone else was going through. Um, that health journey played right into your shift,
Mm-hmm.
going from that place to being an outspoken ally and progressive in mindset. And that must have been hard to deconstruct that, even with the experience you were going through.
Yeah, absolutely. It took literally years, and then being pulled into the world of healthcare in America.
Mhm.
You really don't know how bad it is until you have to actually go through it, and try to navigate all that you have to navigate while trying to navigate just the simple process of having cancer itself. Like, it's overwhelming.
Yeah. And I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who are in health field professions, their frustration with the system is because they are seeing people struggle with it. Their frustration is similar to those who are going through all of the disequity and disillusionment that come with our healthcare system. And um, it is definitely time something needs to change. And it feels like the system is holding on with nails dug in where we are now. But I think that's amazing that you allowed that experience to challenge your values,
Mhm.
to go through the process, and it does take years to deconstruct all of that. So, yeah, it's quite amazing.
Yeah, when you get having a conservative mindset, let's do a lot of conservative talking points, and you build this structure in your brain of what things are, and then to pull that and dismantle that piece by piece by piece. It was a painful process, but a welcoming process, because it brought me again into the world with much more empathy and understanding and compassion for other people. So I'm thankful I was able. So many people, I mean, you see them now on different topics. Like a lot of farmers are having challenges with the tariffs and whatnot. Like, you're seeing like people getting affected in different ways, and you're starting to, when you have that empathy, I think you can solve a lot of problems in the world. But when you don't, you're just pushing it off to the side, like, it's not me, it's not my problem.
Yeah.
Well, it's all of our problems. We're one country, so I hope we get to a point where we get universal health care, so cancer patients like me don't have to worry about losing their homes or losing their livelihood, or have some kind of social safety net out there. And this administration, I know we don't want to get too heavy on the politics. It might just be the craziness we need to get on the right path to get where 31 of, I think, 32 other countries have universal health care, and we simply don't.
Yeah. And 100% agree. That's my hope as well. When you look at the deconstruction of, it's not, that's essentially, that is a very conservative mindset. It's not my problem, so I don't need to worry about it. But there's so much, because I had a similar evolution of going from very staunchly conservative to progressive. Did you find one of those values or building blocks of that mindset was more difficult to deconstruct than the others? Was there one that just kind of stuck with you for a long time, or were they all pretty much the same?
Well, it's very much a house of cards. Once I started pulling the the cards out, I mean it collapsed. I mean, it took a while, but it eventually collapsed on its own without much effort. Um, but yeah, I guess, like you said, I'm more liberal now than I've ever been, and it's ironic. You hear people say, "Oh, you'll become more conservative as you get older," and I found it to be quite the opposite. In my experience, that doesn't mean that's everybody's experience. But yeah, that's that's where
Yeah.
we're at.
I think fear plays a lot into that. I've seen that with some folks who I know who are older who are seemingly gravitating to more of a conservative mindset and more staunchly conservative mindset. And I just feel like there's an element of fear that the world is becoming unfamiliar and they're just
Mhm.
trying to hold tight
Yeah,
to the system that was in place, almost willing to turn a blind eye to the massive issues of systemic racism, devaluing of people and their experiences, attacking concepts that they don't even know what they actually mean, such as DEI and wokeness and critical race theory and all these other things. Um, I just, I personally believe that's all motivated by the fear of the world changing around them.
yeah, that's conservative. Whether Democrat back in the day in the early 1900s to the Republicans nowadays is it's the fear of change, and yeah, we got to get beyond that.
Absolutely.
Change
So
is change is good.
it is good, and it's change is growth. And if you take the mentality of just kind of doing it one at a time, you'd be surprised at how quickly a person can evolve, like both of us in our.
Absolutely.
So, surviving cancer 4 times probably gives you a very different perspective on spirituality or a sense of the divine or source or God or the universe or whatever, however anyone wants to talk about it. How has that changed or challenged or even deepened your beliefs regarding what's out there?
That's an interesting question. I'm probably going to give you an answer you're not expecting. Grew up. I didn't go to church every day. I'm not super religious or anything. Me and my wife did go to Christian churches, a denomination of some sort. I don't even recall. That's how religious I was. I don't even recall. But with the cancer diagnosis, I found myself challenged even more for religion. It almost moved me away from religion.
Mm,
I don't think my cancer, as a miracle or divine or God did anything. I honestly think because of the type of the treatment I got for those who are unfamiliar with CAR T cell immunotherapy is genetically, I got a genetically modified T cells. So I'm literally a human GMO. So the the idea that God all of a sudden gave us this technology when he wouldn't give it to us years ago or centuries ago, and he knows all. It didn't make sense to me. And the thing that really bothered me the most is when I was feeling my worst, and a St. Jude commercial would always come on TV and put my situation in perspective. Not that bad. Here I am, a middle-aged man with cancer. and here's these 2, 3, 4-year-old kids with cancer, and it just kind of, I think it's a combination of seeing how kids are affected. It pissed me off that that's going on, and then with our political climate in our country right now, with how religion is being used to, in my mind, oppress certain other religions or certain groups and whatnot. Through the process over the last decade, it's really kind of turned me off and moved me away from it. And I think that's why a lot of people are moving away from the church, is because they're not seeing Christianity or being played out in society the way it's spoken about in the Bible.
Yeah. So can I dig a little deeper on this and ask you, like,
Absolutely.
what is your philosophy regarding God, that thought or source or universe or synchronicity or whatever anyone wanted to call it?
That's a great question. The Neil deGrasse said that he was talking about this, and I agree with him. There's really no consciousness before life. There will be no consciousness after life, scientifically speaking. But I'm hoping there's somewhere between no consciousness and a spirituality of some sort. Your spirit goes somewhere. It's not wound up in some man-made religion. Like, I hope that happens, but if it doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't know anyways if it didn't. So, that's my hope. I'm kind of stuck in between there.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't know. I really don't put a lot of emphasis on the after, I guess, as much as I used to. And for me, honestly, when I do that, it takes a lot of pressure off of me worrying about dying and getting into heaven or hell or. It, nobody needs that shit. Be honest with you. Sorry about the language, but
No, that's
you're
okay. We cuss on this podcast all the time.
yeah, you're just trying to fight cancer and trying to survive and help other people survive. It's like, I can't make everybody happy.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
including God or Allah or whoever you worship. I think there's like 3,500 different gods out there. Like, which one's the right one? Like, I'm supposed to believe that my guy is the right guy. Like, I'll
There's
just lie there in between.
there's a great clip of Stephen Colbert and Ricky Gervais talking about God. And
I've seen that.
yes, where he said there's 3,500 gods out there. And Ricky Gervais, being an atheist, said, I just believe in one less than you do. And
Mm-hmm.
that was such a smart angle to come at it. And I think there's obviously everyone's entitled to their own experience. It's when
Mm-hmm.
we try and impress upon others what we think that
Yeah.
we start to violate their humanity and their right to think what they want to think. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
And religion has a history of atrocities, just unimaginable atrocities, including within the religion itself. You wipe out the whole world with a great flood. I mean, you literally aborted everybody in the world off,
yes,
except for your boy. Like, come on, man. Like, that doesn't seem like a very kind God to me, personally.
yeah.
But hey, it is what it is. Sorry, religious people, but
It's and that's the thing. So I was I spent 3 years in Bible college at a very fundamental conservative Christian university. Uh, I remember telling people some of the stories, and they're going, "Wait, what?" That's
mm-hmm.
how I'm like, "Yeah, that's how it was there." Um,
Mm-hmm.
but anyway, the point being, like, it is so important just to listen and hear and have the discussions that oftentimes get people so riled up. I think that's the opening to greater understanding, is just
Mm-hmm.
being able to listen to those discussions. So I
Yeah,
appreciate, yeah, you sharing all of that, because none of that was wrong.
yeah.
Everything you stated was factual.
Yeah, yeah, and then I'm not saying anybody else is wrong either. I'm just like, that's just me. That's where I'm at in my life. So,
Absolutely. So during the treatment, you're going through all, and I've heard, we've talked about one of your treatment stories when you were doing the CAR T. Um, but in all of these experiences, I remember having the conversation with you one time of, hey, is it all right if I ask about that? And you said, yeah, absolutely. I view what I want to do is help educate people around this. Um, and I remember you sharing with me, some people don't want to talk about it. Uh,
Mhm.
can you share kind of to help those who have loved ones or friends who have gone through or are going through the cancer experience? Can you share that philosophy um, on, the different types of cancer survivors and their willingness to talk about it?
Yeah, each cancer patient, their survivors on their own journey, and some people like me want to be an advocate and talk about it and encourage people. Other people don't want to even discuss it ever again. Um, some people just deny it altogether. I
Hmm.
mean, people are all over the place, and I think it's each person's individual journey on how they want to address it. I use this opportunity as to make lemonade out of lemons, right? So I use it to get into the whole program at the James. I work with other cancer patients that have similar diagnosis as me and talk them through the steps of what kind of treatment they're getting and what they might feel, what they might go through. I use the experience to help uh, raise funds for Pelotonia and research. Like I'm trying to find the good in the situation to try to help others instead of just stepping to the sideline. It's not wrong if you do. That's just the way I want to use it. Like I got to find a purpose for it, or else I can almost victimize myself about having cancer. I'd rather not be a victim and just be like, oh, this is just my walk in life. Now, what am I going to do with it? Type of mentality. I lost your audio there.
You have a very tight knit family, and
Yes.
you have a community that you have built and are building of support, but also within the cancer community of being able
Mm-hmm.
to help people. So how did your family and community help support you as you went through the healing part of your journey and your evolution? And how has that kind of reverberated in the relationships you're building in the cancer community and being able to help them as you maybe pay it back, pay it forward, however you want to look at it? So what was the role of like your community and your family as you went through this? And then how has that informed what you're doing to help other people?
Uh, with my with my initial cancer diagnosis, it was very dramatic and heartbreaking, and the community. We tried to keep it to ourselves for a while, but it was just too much for La to put on a smile. And if you know my wife, this lady up here behind me, she's uh, very vocal, very uplifting, very positive. And
It's the best.
when you see that her energy's gone, like that's a clue something's not right. And then when she was at work day after day after day, finally our friend Dan came up to us like, what's going on? And she finally broke down. And then Dan's like, we got you. And next thing I know, the whole community at their employment at the time put meals together for us, was checking on loss, sending gift cards and meals. And it was amazing. It was overwhelming. And it was so appreciated because it took a lot of pressure off of her being the only one working at the time. Plus trying to, be a caretaker. That's, it feels like two, three different jobs right there. Plus you're taking care of the home and stuff at points because I was just too weak to do anything. But what I did find with my second, third, fourth diagnosis, we really pulled back from reaching out because it almost felt like uh, I felt like we're almost taking advantage of people's kindness, even though they want to help. It just didn't feel right. As it keep if it, every time it came back, I didn't realize it was going to come back 4 or 5 times. I didn't realize I was going to have to do this process over and over and over again. So we started to pull back, and for each diagnosis, like different people in our lives were notified, and I told them what was going on, and you and your lovely missus were notified this last time, and y'all came up and gave us some support, and we appreciated that. But I found myself over time being somewhat a little bit withdrawn from the public eye with it,
Yeah.
because I feel like we've been blessed enough. We don't need uh, we don't need to feel we don't need to take any more from anybody else, because everybody's got their own challenges, and we were doing okay. And it almost become routine. Like, yeah, I know my oncologist said, having blood cancer is kind of like heart disease or diabetes. You just got to manage it, and that kind of rung with me. Okay, so I can live a little bit, a long time. It's just a process of managing it. I guess I didn't fully understand it when I was initially diagnosed, but I became obviously very well aware of that after all the reoccurrences and treatments and whatnot. But then again, that, like I said in the previous question you asked, it pushed me into the whole program at the James, pushed me into Pelotonia, pushed me into advocating for others and trying to be supportive for others. It really made me a better person overall, full of empathy. I'm going to keep empathy is going to be the word of the day here. To
Hell
try
yeah.
to try to give back.
Yeah.
I think it just made me a better person overall.
So you said something interesting there, and just want to park on it for just a second.
Mm-hmm.
That feeling of we've been blessed enough, we've been given enough, does that root itself in knowing that there are people out there who do take advantage of others? Is that rooted in the sense of, okay, um, I don't think this is it, but I'm just going to throw it out there. It's okay, we've taken too much. We're not worthy to accept more. Because I know on this side of things, it's such a horrible thing to have and to go through, but also what a great opportunity to show people how much you love and care for them by helping
Mm-hmm.
through it. So, just where do you think that because you're not the only ones who have gotten to that place where you're like, oh, I've been given enough. Where do you think that's rooted in, at least for you?
Well, I think for us, ironically, my wife and I started our own business, and at that same time, that business kind of took off at the same time I got diagnosed.
Mm,
So we had more income coming in than we typically did. And even though we're going through all that initially, I know people's resources are valuable to them, and
gotcha.
we just wanted to encourage people to help other people. Check on your other friends and whatnot. Like, we love the meals, we love the support, we love the encouragement, but at the same time, um, we would love for you to share that energy with other people if other people need it. Not necessarily just us, because financially we didn't have any worries. Um, when you don't have financial worries, you don't have hunger worries, you don't have bill worries, you don't. There's a lot that goes away when you have financial security, and even when you're going through some crap. So yeah, I think it was just understanding where we were and just kind of stepping back and like, we appreciate you, but please just focus on others.
Thank you for clarifying that because I initially heard that it was like, oh, it's because of other people out there who take advantage, or it's because, oh, we feel like we've taken too much. But it was from a place where you had plenty
Mm-hmm.
and you're able to do that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, and a lot of people do take advantage. You hear stories all the time of people faking cancer and raising funds, and and that's there could have very easily been that perception, like, how's this guy get cancer and it comes back and it goes away and it comes back, like, I say the same thing. I don't know how I'm here today, but the reality is, it's almost like the boy crying wolf sometimes. And I didn't want to start also painting myself in that light, even though
Yeah.
I'm going through it. I don't want it to be a false narrative out there that, uh, I'm trying to gain stuff by announcing this. I only announce it to let people know, hey, that's what we're going through, not to get anything or stuff like that. So,
Well, it's, I mean, it's such a wonderful thing to know that you were taken care of through your business. Um, and to know that there was that many people in love who wanted to contribute to your healing or support. Um, yeah, that's just, I just really appreciate that perspective, because that is where a lot of people's minds go of, not in your situation, but I think we're always on the lookout for someone trying to take advantage,
Absolutely.
because it's a painful thing. But in your situation, I'm glad that that wasn't a part of the decision making of, I'm worried that someone thinks we're taking advantage. It was more along the lines of, we got it.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the greatest lessons I learned was one time me and my wife were coming off an op ramp and there was a homeless person there. And we judge. It's the first thing we do. We judge. I'm sizing up what kind of shoes he's got on. Is he smoking? How can he afford to say? Like, I'm finding any reason in the world to say this guy ain't got no money and not have to give it to him. And I started talking to La, like, yeah, look at his shoes. They look kind of new and this and that. And then I remember La looked at me and she's like, Brian, it's not about whether they got decent shoes or they got food or they got cigarettes. It's about what you do, not about what they do.
Oh,
So if you give them money, it's about you giving the money, not if they go spend it on alcohol or they go spend it on socks, right? It's whatever they need, and it's about the action of what you do. And so I kind of take that with me going forward as I help people or I volunteer, do any kind of free work or donations. Just like I just have that mindset about it's not about necessarily them, but it's about me.
that, my man, is worth the price of admission right there. What, I mean, massive perspective shift. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if anyone, the people who are listening, if you know LaChandra, she has an amazing point of view, an amazing way to kind of encapsulate things so quickly like that. But that is absolutely right. It's not about
Yeah.
them. It's about your intentionality and what you're doing.
Yeah.
Um, Following your heart, not looking for reasons not to.
Mm-hmm. And
Spreading.
I've never looked at a homeless person the same since. Never.
Yeah. Once I found out that the issues of homelessness generally centered around mental illness as one of the
Mm-hmm.
big factors, that
Mm-hmm.
really changed my perspective
Yeah. Yeah.
of, here's people that society has allowed to fall through the cracks and has turned a blind eye to
Yeah.
falling through the cracks. And so anytime we're confronted with that opportunity to spread kindness, hope, love, support, that justification comes in of, here's why I shouldn't, because
Yeah.
yeah,
I think it's just naturally built in to think that way, but you got to kind of rewire yourself. You're allowed
mm,
to think differently.
yeah. And that whole idea around approaching people with a different mentality and seeing them, I think, bigger than their
Mm-hmm.
situation and the value they have, really is such a lead in to the conversation around being an ally.
Mm-hmm.
The battles, I know I've come such a long way. You and I have never talked about your origin story, if you will, of allyship. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but going through all of these changes in your life and seeing things differently, the perspective shifts, your own journey. Can you talk to us about the start of you being an ally for the LGBTQ community?
For the LGBTQ community, a lot of that had to do with opening myself up to learn new things, and that started off with my cancer journey, and then that brought an immense awareness, like I said previously, of our healthcare system here. And then I thought to myself, man, if that's really as bad as what I'm finding out it really is, and what's it like for other people? And then I was blessed to have two kids, both in the LGBTQ community now, and I came to the realization that it doesn't change them or me or anybody else on how they live their life. Um, so I had to learn that the hard way. It cost me friendships. It cost me family members because of my conservative ideology that I was brainwashed into. And it really kind of forced me to meet people where they're at and just love people for who they are. I'm glad I did because it's so much, you know, it's, it's hard to find hate all the time. It's hard to find reasons to not like people. And I don't want to be like that. When it's one of the best things I ever did was get off conservative radio and get off, conservative news channels and whatnot. It's really been it's a breath of fresh air, honestly, because
Yeah.
it's just so negative. And I'm glad to be where I'm at now. Like, there's a lot of personal growth. So I've marched in multiple pride parades now in support of my kids. My kids make fun of me now because I bought a rainbow Christmas tree, and I'm like, man, that's a gay ass tree, Dad. I'm like, I just got it for you. I'm trying to support you. He's like, still gay, Dad. So my kids are clowning me a little bit, and I'm like, I'm just loving y'all. That's all that is. That's love.
Yes. And it's such a, you know, in my perspective, unfortunately, we have far too many cisgendered, straight white men who are keeping their mouths shut. And maybe not even just maybe men, period, cisgendered heterosexual men across the board, keeping their mouths shut about allyship and about being
Mm-hmm.
for this community of people who their experience, all it is just a different experience than ours. It's not hurting us.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, and so you talked about marching, you marched in multiple pride parades. And how do you, and this is kind of going with the flow of the conversation here, but how do you create that safety? Because I know a lot of the times when people look at me, they see, yeah, he's totally an ex-football coach, or yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he used to be a principal, or and he's got the beard and he looks rougher and all that other stuff. Like, how do you go about creating a safe space when people just barely know you or may have just met you, to know that whatever their life journey is, they're safe being there with you?
Yeah. How, how do I go about that? Well, it's challenging sometimes because like you, as you see, I got like a camo shirt, I got the ball cap. If I didn't have my glasses on, I could very easily be mistaken of still having that conservative mentality or a MAGA type. Um, so I physically put things like stickers on my truck uh, to let people know, like, just because I drive a pickup truck, I'm white with a beard or a goatee or, the bent bill, I was like, doesn't mean I'm, MAGA white. But I try to differentiate myself. Like, I have a flag. I took down my American flag and put up an all inclusive flag to give representation, let people know, hey, this is, it's a cool place. You're not going to be judged here. You're welcome here. And I've had to do that. And then outside of aesthetics, I just try to be uh, more proactive and more of an ally through social media posts, through videos I create, content creation. It's been quite the transformation, going from the conservative mindset to a very liberal, as they say, woke mindset. Um, but it's been fun and it's been welcoming. And I find it very easy to transition. Like, most of my friends now are in the LGBTQ community, which is interesting. Um, and I love them all, and I support them all. I'm just a totally different person now through the cancer experience and through the awareness of all the growth that I've done since being diagnosed in 2015.
Isn't it just easier to
Yeah.
not hold on to all the anger and everyone has to be a certain way, live a certain way? It's just so much easier. You don't have to deal with any of that.
Yeah, yeah. Trying to justify conservative viewpoints gets exhausting because at the end of the day, like, I knew I was wrong. Like, they just want to love one another and they just want to be happy, just like I do. Like, why is their standard of living or mine better? Uh, everybody deserves equality, and that's kind of where I'm at now. So,
Yeah. And around that conversation of allyship, I think a lot of times when we talk allyship, we're strictly talking about the LGBTQIA plus community. But allyship is bigger
Mhm.
and it encompasses so much more. How do you see allyship and what it encompasses?
Oof. I, do you mean in, like how it's presented, or I'm not sure I quite understand the question.
No, no problem. We're kind of going with the flow on this one,
Okay, no, that's fine.
but just I think a lot of times people think take allyship and put it in a box that
Uh-huh.
it's strictly with the LGBTQIA plus community.
Mm-hmm.
Allyship is can be so
Mm-hmm.
much more. It can include so many other people in that.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you view being an ally or allyship?
I think being an ally, I think you got to approach it differently with a certain, whichever situation you're in. Uh, Obviously, I do a lot of, I do the marches and support and allyship with the LGBTQ community, but even like the African American community, Black, Brown uh, people in the United States, I advocate for them too. A quick story: when I was in my old employment, I was a supervisor, and there was a young gentleman there that he was borderline saying some racist things. And I told my wife, I was like, he's eventually going to slip up and cross a line. He doesn't know I'm married to a black woman. And her and I talked about how to handle it. And I finally
Mm.
came down to the decision, like, when this kid slips up, I'm not going to report him because he's young. And I made mistakes when I was young. I made that, and I consider myself what I consider the way I worked with him as allyship, not only for him, but for Black and Brown community. But when he did cross that line, he referred to another member in the warehouse in a derogatory term. I pulled him aside instead of going up to HR and getting him fired. And it's just not, it's counterproductive, right? So I pulled him aside off of the cameras into the back of the trailer, and I said, "Listen, my wife's African American. I don't appreciate your comment. I thought it was disrespectful and it was unnecessary." And I said, going forward, I would appreciate if you take this opportunity to learn that and not use any kind of terminology like that as we move forward. I was like, but if you do it again, you're not going to leave me a choice but to go to HR and report you for, using these discriminatory words. And, immediately he backtracked uh, and apologized. And I was thankful for that. But, as we say, words are meaningless without action. But then as time went on, every single day he was coming in and apologizing. Every single day he's like, I don't know what I was thinking. I talk to my friends like that. I don't know why I let that out at that moment. And now, years, like over a decade, since I've worked with this guy, and he called me, I think just last year, and he's like, "Hey man, I want you to know that you're the best supervisor I ever had, and I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and discuss things with me." So I think allyship can present itself in so many different ways. And I think even though his comments were derogatory, my allyship towards him and towards the Black Brown community combined, and I think he himself is now a better person going forward when it comes to dealing with topics like that.
Mhm. So that just brings another question. And you and I have talked about this, but just so I think a lot of people are experiencing consternation and struggle because you have friends who think certain way, and as you evolve, those friends just kind of you don't know how to handle it, and so you end up not you personally, but friends fall off just because a lot of people don't want to have the confrontation or they're not quite sure. They know they can't change them. Um, but I think a lot of people are hurting because family members, friends who view things through a very narrow perspective and
Mm-hmm.
to just speak plainly, a bigoted perspective of whether it's no matter what community, whoever has been marginalized. Um, how do you, and I think it's in that story as well, but maybe a little bit even broader, how do you kind of come alongside of people as opposed to getting in that confrontation state? But how do you come alongside of people and just help them see how important it is to validate someone else's human experience and
Mm.
help them see a different way forward? Or is that something that's just kind of ongoing in situation by situation?
I really believe it's situation by situation. I Another example is when we first moved into this house, my neighbor in the back, Law was out of town, and my family helped move all of us in. So it was a bunch of white people moving stuff in. So I think my neighbor just assumed we were a white family. And I was out in the backyard doing something, and my neighbor, hey, you moving in? I'm like, yeah, small talk like you do with a new neighbor. And we started talking about the neighborhood, and I was like, yeah, it seems really peaceful. It's an older neighborhood and older residents within the neighborhood, so it's really quiet. And then he started going on about how the neighborhood was good until all the N-words moved in, and I was almost aghast. I was taken back, like, but that's one of those situations where I could tell right away, like, this guy is not a guy you can pull into a trailer and have a conversation with, right? I mean, he used the big N word with a hard ER, as I like to say.
Uh,
And so, my initial reaction, as a husband and a father of a black kid, is like you want to punch him right in the face, but that's counterproductive, right?
mm-hmm,
So I thought about it while I was still out of town before she got back, how I wanted to handle that. And I just told myself, I know who Law is. I don't have to justify Law's existence. And I
mm-hmm,
let it be. And I didn't tell Law about it. And I didn't tell him about it because I knew at some point they were going to meet. And I knew when that moment happened, that light bulb in his head is going to go off like, oh shit. And it did. It did when they met. Law was as nice as can be, and Law was pleasant. And we're good neighbors. We take care of our property. And like he came to that realization, but he, I had to let him swallow that pill, that bitter pill a little bit, to know how stupid he sounded. The next day he come out to me, it was just me and him, and he apologized and tried to excuse his behavior, said he's not racist and this and that. And I'm like, okay. Like, yeah, you are, but okay.
you're dropping that word. I'm not racist.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like you gotta work with different people different ways. The young guy in the trailer that I was just talking about, I knew he respected me before that incident happened. So I knew he looked up to me. So I was able to take that moment and coach him. The guy across the fence, I mean, he was just a bigoted racist. And I never did tell a lot of that story until just recently. That guy died. And then I
Mm,
shared this story with La because I didn't want there to be conflict. I didn't want La not to feel welcomed into the neighborhood because we had a bigot living right behind us.
yeah.
And so she kind of chuckled, and I was like, yeah, that's 5 years of me stewing on that and wanting to share it with you, but I couldn't. But she
Mm.
understood why. I was protecting her.
You said something in there about the kid that you taught that trailer and how he looked up to you and he respected you. And that's kind of, there is conversation right now of young men struggling to find their place, and so they're being kind of co-opted through people like Joe Rogan,
Mm-hmm.
and others who are just trying to pull them into this angry conservative movement. And I think you hit something so hard right there, was the fact the role that other men play in their lives. And like I've said before, you and I on the outside look like we're, pretty hard, tough, alpha male, which I hate that term. I hate
Yeah.
that term, but that's kind of how they see it. But I really think there's a big piece that is important, and that is men who are in our position, in our stage of life, mentoring young men and
Mhm.
creating a safe space for those young men to be who they are and to have their experiences, validate their feelings, and
Mhm.
help guide them along the way. And I just want to get your reaction to it. I feel as though we are all so busy in this world that we're ignoring the fact that we need to kind of step forward and get ourselves into positions where we can mentor young men and be a
Yeah.
your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a unique situation where when my mom got pregnant, my biological dad left. Never met him, never even laid eyes on him, not once in my life. But through that, until she met my stepdad later on in life, when they met, I was a teenager, so I wasn't happy with anybody. I didn't want to be advised by, especially some guy I just met when I was 16 years old. Like, so through my life, like I used to use the experience of being around other men, and I'd pull the best pieces of those men in my life together to kind of create who I am today. And so I have this unique position of understanding the power of influence, if you want it, like because I understand after watching all how other dads worked and how they influenced their kid, and it just kind of almost on a side note influenced me without them ever even knowing it. And so I understand the power of influence that you can have if you're not dismissive. Like you can't go in like, you're doing this wrong. You got to listen to them, but just kind of like, well, what if you think about it like this? Or you just kind of redirect the anger or the frustration in a different way. I think you can get a lot of positive results from that.
Yeah. And you've certainly, had such the evolution. And I know that the first diagnosis was a big piece of that. And I'm sure there
Mm-hmm.
was lots of other seeding of the ground, if you will, in your heart where, it made you ready for the changes that were to come. But, sometimes people are trying to become that better version of themselves. And right, wrong, or indifferent, I really don't think it matters. But there's never that moment, that big moment. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people feel stuck in trying to
Yeah.
become who they want to be versus who they were. So if you
Yeah.
were going to give advice to someone saying, "Hey, Brian, I really want to be a better version of myself. I want to embrace more empathy. I want to be just a better person and have a better experience in this life, but I'm stuck." What would you say to them to help get them moving forward?
I, well, depending on what they're stuck with, whether it's uh, cancer or whether it's, you know, community issues, whatever that thing is, I think the best way to get unstuck is by doing the hardest thing, and that's taking the first step.
Mm.
And the first step is if you don't feel like you're jogging with your community correctly, or you don't understand the Black community or the Hispanic community, take a first step. Go to a Black church. Go to the Hispanic Heritage Parade. Like put yourself in positions where you're going to be talking uh, and having conversations with people of different cultures and different viewpoints of the world. And same thing with cancer. Like feel free to take that first step and reach out to cancer survivors like myself, whether through the Hope program or through some other program, and let those people help guide. Like it's not a journey you got to take by yourself. I mean, ultimately, you got to take that first step, but allow people to help you along in the process because it's tough trying to kind of redo how you were or how you are to what you want to be. But if you can find a direction, uh, just keep taking steps, and
Mhm.
you're just bound to grow. And it's not going to happen overnight.
Mhm.
But the more steps you take, the more growth you're going to have.
Yeah. And when you think about that idea of healing, whether physically or probably more apropos to say internally healing or transforming. Um, is there a myth or something out there that if you could just take a sledgehammer to it and just destroy it, what would be a myth around the whole transformation healing concepts that you wish you could just smash to pieces?
Yeah, the myth, it's not the transformation is not the healing transformation is not a linear process, right?
Mm,
Um, it's more like a spiral dance with setbacks and leaps forward, but not straight line, but from broken to fixed, right?
hell yeah.
But you just you got to figure it out. It's all intertwined. Um, I don't I don't know. And everybody's going to be different.
Mhm.
Everybody's going to be different. You just got to kind of figure out where you're at and kind of go with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And in that transformation, I know I went through a period where there was when I re-examined the version of myself that existed, 25 ish, 20, 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I experienced sometimes a lot of regret, just disappointment. And I've really worked to shed that because, one, once the bell is rung, you can't unring the bell.
Mm-hmm.
But two, also kind of understanding and giving myself the grace of where I was and just knowing I was doing as bad as sometimes things were, I was doing the best I can with what I knew at the time, which is never an excuse, by the way, for being a shit. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but so, how do you balance honoring who you were in the journey you've taken without those aspects of regret, just to be able to fully embrace who you are now and who you're becoming?
um, I think you got to first of all give yourself grace. Um, Hindsight's 2020, so it's always so much easier to be critical of yourself, the past version of yourself. I really try to take things, much like you. I was a piece of work back in the day. I think we all were. We all done things that were like, probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
But I think you got to let that go. Give yourself grace. Take things day by day, and don't don't forget the lessons learned from those times, but don't dwell on them as you're moving forward because you're never going to live life in reverse. You're always going to live it going forward. And I think that's for me. That's how I'm doing it. I
Yeah.
see. I think a lot of us spend so much time in the rearview mirror instead of driving down the road. Sometimes we forget to, we're actually going to a destination.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love the that analogy too, because you keep driving only looking in the rearview mirror, you're gonna crash.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's there just for glancing.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. Glance back. Oh, I learned that lesson back then when I was being a butthead. Let's not do that again.
Yeah. And I think also you hit on something that is so important to not just the end part of the journey or
Hmm.
let's say the present part of the journey that we're in, but also the beginning. And if I was going to sum all the wisdom you shared, it's essentially courage. Having the
Hmm.
courage to be open, having the courage to take a first step, having the courage to reach out for assistance or just for other experiences, and then having the courage to give yourself the grace about all the things that you wish you could change. Um,
Hmm.
I see courage so much in your story. And I know sometimes courage is just a necessary courage. Like this is just what I have to do. But
Absolutely.
I don't think it's I don't think it's a coincidence that your name, Brian, means courage.
Oh, is that
So
what it means?
yes, it does.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
I'm an authority on the subject with the same person. But that's kind of the where it all comes from. That's the meaning behind it. And you've given us a lot of lessons of
Uh,
courage and wisdom from what you've gone through. If you could sum up your personal evolution in just a couple sentences,
mhm.
how would you sum it up?
I would say, um, I would say I become authentically uh, who I was always meant to be by allowing myself to have that grace, by allowing myself to let go of the past, by allowing myself to learn new things. It has allowed me to grow into the authentic person I am today, and then I really always wanted to be, but I just took an indirect path to get here.
Yeah.
That's more
As
than a couple sentences, but I
no,
apologize.
but as you just taught us, this whole thing is not linear.
Yeah,
It's that, that dance. It's back, it's forth, it's 5 steps forward, 3 steps to the side, 2 steps to the back. It's all kinds of motion, really,
yeah,
in
yeah,
our journey. Um,
absolutely.
so, Brian, I think it would be irresponsible of me not to just kind of give you the floor a little bit here and just
Okay.
say, if you were going to just tell people in general, from your perspective, how we can continue to move forward, how we can continue to come together through all the experiences you have had,
Mhm.
what would be the advice that you would love to just leave with our audience and those who are listening, to just say, like, hey, it's going to be all right. And these are thoughts from Brian.
That put me on the spot. Um, I don't know. I don't know if anything I say is going to resonate to the mass, but it might resonate to some people. But just especially cancer survivors. First of all, take it day by day. Um, don't beat yourself up if you don't feel good that day. Allow yourself to be sad. It's natural. Allow yourself to be upset, angry, but also allow yourself to be happy on the days that you want to be happy. Allow yourself to be productive on days you got energy. Um, it's a day by day process, and for cancer patients, with society as a whole, allow yourself to experience new things. Allow yourself to meet new people. Put yourself in environments you've never been in. I always say your greatest achievement is just beyond your comfort zone. So if it makes you uncomfortable, it's probably a good thing. Uh, I remember we just last year we had Thanksgiving at a family's house that we just met, and within that family there was a blend of Iranian and Hispanic, and then Latin American. Like there's this huge blend of people, and I didn't know if I was gonna be able to communicate because I don't know all their stories. I didn't know how well I was gonna be able to communicate, but I we took that opportunity. We had Thanksgiving there, and it was one of the best Thanksgivings we ever had because we allowed ourselves to be placed into an environment. And then by being in that environment, we learned about their culture, we learned about issues, we learned what they're doing. And you find out they got a lot of the same BS that we deal with, and they have a lot of the same fun things. They do a lot of the same fun things that we do. So it made for great conversation. It's really enlightening. So I'd really encourage people to step outside of their comfort zone and get uncomfortable, meet new
Absolutely.
people, do new things.
Love that, man. Brian, thank you so much for sharing with us and just being a part of this. I've gained so much from our friendship and
Yeah.
your wisdom, and just you being a friend. You are always greatly appreciated. And I know that everything you shared today, there's going to be a lot that helps folks who are out there, helps them,
Mhm.
whether it's greater understanding of a friend, loved one going through something, or it's
Yeah.
just for their own personal journey. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for being a part of things today, and just appreciate
Yeah.
you, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. It's been an honor, and I appreciate your authenticity. And I appreciate. I know we're in our weekly meetings, and I'm glad I got my camera to work this time, so that's nice. But yeah, yeah, you're an awesome dude, and I appreciate having you as a friend. I value that. Thank you.
Yeah. You're so welcome. And just because you mentioned it, we have a men's group that meets once a month. Um, it's the Echo and Athena men's crew. Brian is a founding member. He helped me get this up and running and develop some of the parameters. And it's really a special time. And it's great to learn from Brian and the other guys who are in the group, a place that is safe for us to be ourselves, but also to express greater understanding and just connect and be a part of it. So I appreciate you being a part of that and supporting in all of it, brother.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for watching. That is Brian Baker. And what an amazing conversation we had. Just appreciate him so much. And peace to all of you out there.